Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. Mini. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Dustin Jackson.
Dustin, you and I, we're recording this episode. This is a bit of an addendum to the last episode we did, the live episode about the Nintendo Direct. Because in that episode, we said we don't know who is behind Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. My theory was it might be Retro, and that's why it's not coming out until January 16th of next year, because Retro is really crunched for time. Well, after that recording, after that live broadcast, came to find out a few hours later that the developers responsible for this remastered port of Donkey Kong Country Returns is Polish studio Forever Entertainment S.A.
You said addendum earlier? That's a good word.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to explain another word here.
I guess all that other stuff you said is interesting, too.
Yeah, no, if I could be your vocabulary builder, Dustin, then I feel like I'm doing my job on this planet.
I feel like every episode has at least one.
Yeah, I like to really just keep your brain sharp, because I don't want the dementia setting in.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, if I can keep my friend Dustin like a tack sharp, then you know what? It's a good day's work. But no, I of course had never heard of Forever Entertainment S.A, but I am a cloistered idiot who usually doesn't learn about anything related to video games until they brush up against my world. I still don't know what the new Zelda is. I still need to look that up. So I saw this studio name, and I initially assumed the SA in their name stood for South Africa. I thought that this was the South African wing of some larger video game studio, some international conglomerate. And I thought, oh, that's so cool, because this means that we can say work has been done on a Donkey Kong game in another continent, because that would join Europe, Asia, and North America. So I'd be like, cool, we can add Africa to the very impressive list of Donkey Kong developers. But no, they're Polish. It's kind of disappointing.
Oh, so close.
Not for them. This isn't some sort of like weird Polish joke like your grandparents would tell for some reason. No, this is just like, oh, okay, well, I thought that would be a fun little trivia factoid, but then you do a little bit of research and you find out, nah, they're in Poland. But you might be wondering what the SA does stand for then. And we were making jokes, we were cracking wise. We're like, well, it stands for Stinky Ape, obviously, because it is Stinky Ape Summer. And
of course. And
they're now a Stinky Ape studio. But Poland expert Mitchell Wolf clarified this for us, that SA is an abbreviation of a Polish word. And I'm going to butcher the pronunciation because it's a Polish word. But the word is Spółka Akcyjna.
Wow, I could feel you trying.
Spółka Akcyjna, which roughly translates to the effect of joint stock company. And that means it's effectively the equivalent of limited after rare. So, SA. Yeah. Now, Nintendo, of course, did not broadcast this information. They want you to think that most of their games are developed by magical elves in Santa's workshop.
Right.
But Forever Entertainment issued a press release after the Nintendo Direct and quietly updated their website to include information on Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. Not much information, just the fact that they are handling this port. And Dustin, this press release, mwah. Now, granted, this has been translated from the original Polish, but even accounting for the translation stripping any excitement, any nuance from it, it is probably the most boringly wretched thing I have read all year.
Awesome. The way you were building it up made it sound like it was going to be some wonderful, fun time, but I guess not.
I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it for everyone because I really can't do it justice unless I just read the whole thing. This is the press release they put out to let the world know that they are doing Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, and this might be why the world did not in fact know that they're doing Donkey Kong Country Returns HD until much later. The management board of Forever Entertainment S.A., based in Gdynia, hereinafter referred to as the Issuer Company, informs that today, June 18, 2024, at 4 p.m. Polish time, during the Nintendo Direct conference, the first marketing material announcing the release of the game was presented. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, hereinafter referred to as the game. Title. The game is produced by the issuer on behalf of Nintendo Co. Limited, hereinafter Nintendo, and will be published by Nintendo. The game will be released on a date announced by Nintendo. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD is the official name of the game codenamed Title 1, presented by the issuer on its website in the Premieres tab and in reports periodic. The financial terms of the agreement concluded by the issuer with Nintendo regarding the production of the game do not differ from market standards used in this type of agreements. The issuer's management board decided to publish the above information due to the fact that the production of the game has a significant impact on the financial situation of the company. The production of this title may have a potentially significant impact on the valuation of the issuer and its financial instruments listed in the alternative trading system on the New Connect market. Riveting stuff, Dustin. I think they should start their own version of Scribes, because the golden age of Donkey Kong has been reignited.
Right, if I wasn't on board before, I sure as hell am now.
No, look. I don't know. Maybe it's just me being a fanciful man full of merriment, but wow. I'm not used to my press releases. I'm used to dealing with Platonic and Rare, and so
Right,
wow.
you're more used to like a press release that says like, this January, get ready to go bananas with Donkey Kong.
Right, even the Nintendo Direct, even the voiceover guy is more colorful than this. But what is Forever Entertainment S.A? I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know, and you didn't know, Dustin. I thought I was just, my usual self. Well, I don't know anything outside of Donkey Kong. Oh. But a lot of people didn't know, so I felt a little bit better here. They are actually somewhat of a prolific publisher. They specialize in remakes and ports, so there you go. And specifically, their main area of interest has been the Nintendo Switch, putting versions of games on the Nintendo Switch. They'll get in under the hood, put it on there for small developers, a lot of indie publishers. They're effectively kind of like what Team 17 would do for Platonic in Platonic's early days. Team 17 handled a lot of the ports of Yooka-Laylee, so it's kind of a similar thing. But in this case, they are actually handling the port, but Nintendo is still publishing it.
So this time they're a developer rather than a publisher, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think they do a little bit of grease work for the games themselves, but I don't think they do much in the way of developing. Indeed, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, it's probably their biggest project to date. And I don't want to say that as just the biased Donkey Kong fan, because I'm sure there are just as dyed-in-the-wool fanatics for some of these games as I am for the DKU. There are aficionados for everything. And so I don't want to put any, to quote a term from the press release, valuation on my wants versus other people's wants. But I do think DKC HD is probably the biggest damn thing ever done by Forever Entertainment S.A. I mean, certainly just working with Nintendo is this huge pedigree, this huge lift. And they alluded to that in that press release, like, hey, this is going to mean big things for us. So That being said, Dustin, I want to play a game with you.
Oh, I love games. Now, is this game part of the DKU?
This is not a DKU game. It is related to the DKU in that we're holding it on the Kongversation, but it, in fact, is not a DKU game. Yeah. So.
Gotcha.
Dustin, I had to do a lot of research when this story first broke because I had to confirm it. I had to look into Forever Entertainment. I don't just repeat what I hear on social media. I have to actually do a little bit of journalistic legwork myself. And I had to learn a lot about Forever Entertainment in a very short window of time. And I got intimately familiar with their library, with their body of work. And so I want you, Dustin, to be just as familiar with their body of work. So in our show notes, I have listed 10 games. Nine of those games are real Forever Entertainment S.A. published games. One of them is a forgery. One of them is a fraud, a fake. And I want you to read all 10 of these and try to guess, without looking it up, which is the fake game.
Okay, so I looked at these names earlier, and it is very hard to know. I'll go through the list now. Okay. So, Cooking Simulator.
That's right.
Ultimate Fishing Simulator. Ultimate Ski Jumping 2020. Wood Zone. Ooh. That one strikes me as like an early 90s radical game about wood.
You're in the wood zone now, bro.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh shit. So Lick Lab 1963, Clock Simulator, Teddy Flop Ear Mountain Adventure, Teddy Flop Ear Kayaking, Teddy the Wanderer Mountain Hike, and Cat on a Diet.
Cat on a Diet, yeah. So here's the thing, Dustin. Even though I said one of them is fake, that means at the very least 2 of those Teddy games are real.
I know, that's what threw me off. When I was reading them, I read the first one, I was like, Teddy Flop Ear, there's no way that's real. And then I saw there was another one, and I thought, oh, that means it has to be real. At least one of them.
I might be making up one of the Teddy Flop Ears, but wouldn't that just be salt in the wound that Teddy Flop Ear has gotten more games than Banjo-Kazooie has in the last, 16 years?
Well, yeah, that's the thing that was throwing me off, because the reason I thought it was fake was, the reason I thought it was fake, rather, is because it's called Teddy Flop Ear. Yeah. And so even if one of them is fake, my whole reasoning for thinking it was fake was thrown out the window. So I have to pick one of these that's fake. It's so hard when most of them sound fake. Oh. I'm gonna take a stab in the dark. Just because it sounds too ridiculous to be a real one. But part of me thinks that's the trap. But I'm going to go with Lick Lab 1963.
That's correct, Dustin. You sussed it out.
Okay. Well, to be perfectly fair, I wasn't confident in that answer.
Yeah, right. I had to tailor it just so to put that little bit of doubt on there. But yes, you are correct. You are now a Forever Entertainment S.A. expert.
I feel like I know more about them than anyone on the planet.
Freezer! Yeah, we're streaming this for our patrons, for our $5 and up patrons, and Freezer says she's got some of these, which doesn't surprise me, given that Freezer is a collector. But yeah.
Well, I think they also, in the little bit of research I did put in, I thought I saw they handled that remake. I don't know if it's a remake or a remaster of Panzer Dragoon. Yeah. And that was kind of a big one.
I would say Panzer Dragoon is the biggest game they did
besides Donkey Kong.
Before Donkey Kong, and I would say Donkey Kong now has kind of eclipsed it. But how did this come about, Dustin? How did this little-known Polish company specializing in remakes and ports, mostly on the Switch, but also on the other consoles and Steam and mobile, how do they get the opportunity handed to them? And we may never know the specifics because Nintendo doesn't really share this kind of thing often.
Right.
And unless we befriend anybody on the inside of Forever Entertainment S.A. But to be clear, I was not mocking their portfolio just now. I am sure Teddy Floppier Kayaking was the Teddy Floppier game that Teddy Floppier fans were waiting for.
It was the peak of the series.
When they announced Teddy Floppier Kayaking and had the same reaction in their fan community that Donkey Kong Racing had in ours in 2001. Jubilation. But, we don't know exactly what happened. My theory, when we talked about this, even before the last episode, when we talked about this on our Stinky Ape Summer Kickoff, when it was just a hypothesis, a hypothesis even, where it was like, this would make sense for Nintendo to do it, and I would be astonished if they didn't, and lo and behold, they did it. But, the theory was, they need Donkey Kong Country Returns back on store shelves.
Right.
The theme park is opening in Japan late this year. It's opening in Orlando, Florida next year. And there's no actual Donkey Kong series product on the shelves at this time that's newer than Tropical Freeze for the Switch. And, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, you can parse that out however you want, but it doesn't count. It doesn't tie into the Donkey Kong series experience, which is what the theme park presents. And the theme park is primarily based on Donkey Kong Country Returns. And because Donkey Kong Country Returns is not readily available or in a playable state on any, modern console in any modern context, and this is also a time when Nintendo finally seems to, give a damn or two about future-proofing their library, like making sure that the Switch infrastructure will carry over to the Switch successor. And that it makes sense that they would want a definitive version of the game on the Nintendo Switch.
Definitely.
We talked about that HD version that already existed that appeared on the NVIDIA Shield in China in 2019, but they probably thought it looked too dated. They probably thought, as much as we said, just put it, on a Switch cartridge and release it, people would raise some eyebrows over that. We're already having this debate about pricing and what is this game going to cost, and could you imagine if it was just a slightly less muddy version of the original Returns without anything added to it? So they needed someone who could augment it with some graphical enhancements on a budget while also putting in that additional content from Returns 3D from 2013. And I'm sure discussions were probably had with Retro, or, very least meetings, a little bit of back and forth. And it was determined that Retro simply didn't have the people power to do this with Metroid Prime 4 and them under the gun to get it out, after all of this time. So the theory I had posited on the live episode about the Nintendo Direct was Retro, they had a very crunched schedule. They had a skeleton crew working on this, and that's why it wasn't coming out until January. But it may have just been when the can was kicked down the road after they found a willing partner to do this, a willing and able partner to do this. And say what you will about Forever Entertainment S.A. and what they've done thus far, but, they did prove themselves, I suppose, with Panzer Dragoon remake. So
yeah,
Nintendo looked at what they can do, how they can make a port look, and they said, why don't you do this? And maybe it was a relatively late decision that Retro couldn't. Monster Games themselves, they were just purchased the other year. And so they would no longer be in the cards for doing this version. They did a fine job with Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, but they were purchased by, was it iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations?
God, I don't know what that is.
I know, like, Forever Entertainment S.A. makes more sense to my brain than iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. But Monster was off the table, which is a shame because we always earmarked them as, oh, wouldn't it be great if they did the next Donkey Kong Country game? You know, for a while after Tropical Freeze, we thought, just give it to them. They did such a good job with Returns 3D, but they couldn't do it, so they went to Forever Entertainment S.A. after, I'm sure, plenty of hand-wringing and debate. But I'm sure Retro will still have some collaboration behind this. Like, it is their original assets after all, so I'm sure it's not just going to be done in a vacuum. And also, Nintendo is going to be overseeing this. They're not going to release a substandard port. Like, I hear the fear out there that Forever Entertainment S.A. is a shovelware company, which I don't even really like that as a term. It diminishes studios, and there is a place for a Forever Entertainment S.A. and what they do for other studios. Studios who can't afford to do a port themselves, or they don't have the technical know-how to do it. Like, it just makes sense that you could find a lucrative spot in the very crowded video game industry by focusing on stuff like this. So, you know, no chuckling, no chortles to be had at Forever Entertainment S.A. beyond, you know, some of their funny sounding games. But
yeah, no, one thing I keep in mind with something like this, so, Hyle, do you remember on the Wii U, they did that HD remaster of Twilight Princess that was received pretty well?
Yeah.
That was developed by a studio called Tantalus Interactive, and the only game I knew from them before that was South Park Rally for the Nintendo 64.
Oh,
so, you can't hold past games against studios all the time.
Yeah, even if it's South Park, I can't hold it against them.
Yeah.
When I ran the story yesterday, you know, after when DK Vine ran it, I was kind of nervous to run it. And it's just like one of those things where I know this is going to create new negativity for those who are already feeling negative about Donkey Kong Country Returns HD's very existence, instead of it being the new game right now. I was like, this is not going to help matters. Like, there's no way you can gussy this up for people who are already skeptical about this and make it work. And it's not my job to make it work. I'm just reporting on what happens. But I also am the emotional caretaker of a large part of the Donkey Kong community. It's a very frustrating thing to be sometimes. But, you know, I want everybody, if they're not excited about this, then to at least, you know, feel good about their life. And it's just... But I will say that this is their business model. This is what they do. This is the most high profile thing they've done. But yeah, like Twilight Princess, that's a good analogy. I would also just look at, from a broader perspective, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, the new play control version of Jungle Beat that came out 2 years before Returns actually came out. This is kind of a similar situation to that, where they're just taking something that has already kind of fallen by the wayside due to its controls or the platform it was on, and they're bringing it up to the modern consumer standards. And so they're not making a new Donkey Kong game. They're polishing up an old one. That's all it is. The game's already there.
Yeah, I feel like, if this was a brand new game, I could see people's, skepticism. But if they're just doing a remaster, which is something they do a lot of already, and they have Nintendo supervision, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, it does explain why certain things may not actually come to fruition. Like, we talked about Donkey Kong's nose last time. Like, he still has his old nose. That's weird, because Retro changed his nose in Tropical Freeze for the Switch. Well, yes, but Retro did Tropical Freeze for the Switch. I think there's only going to be so much that is going to be changed with this, and I think it should probably nip any expectations in the bud that they're adding anything to this game beyond the Returns 3D content.
Yeah, and that already is like a big get.
It's a huge get. You know, it's basically taking what Retro did and then what Monster Games did a couple years after that and making it this cohesive whole, this unified experience. And that's all we really hoped for. Like that was the most wild speculation we had on our kickoff episode. And I shut it down. I was like, there's no way they're going to do that. Right? It's just going to be Donkey Kong Country Returns. So this is more than I thought we would get with this. So I'm taking it because those were excellent levels that Monster added to the experience. And
yeah, it would have been a shame to just leave them behind.
Yeah, it's like when people go on about Neki Nightmare or Pacifica, you know, not being in any version of Donkey Kong Country beyond those specific handheld remakes. So when we thought it could plausibly be Retro behind this, and like I said, I never really thought it was going to be Monster, considering that they were, you know, bought by some weird racing company, and that's all they do now. No slight meant towards iRacing.com motorsport simulations, because I'm sure they make some fine products too, and I'm sure their fans are just as fanatic about iRacing.com motorsports simulations as we are about Rare or Playtonic.
Right, I'm sure they're lovely people.
They're lovely. You know, we should have tea sometime. We should break bread. We should all get together. But there was some hope, because, you know, we know what Retro wanted to do with Tropical Freeze for the Switch beyond New Funky Mode. They wanted to add a secret final King K. Rool boss fight to it. And so that immediately gets brought back up again. Like, oh, you know, you're going to add a secret K. Rool boss fight now that he's back after Smash. What would be holding them back? And this will probably be a faithful remaster. With this news, I don't see them going off script. I don't see them changing anything about the game other than adding some fur effects, adding new water, some new fire, you know, some new textures.
Yeah, and all that's still appreciated.
That's still appreciated, but I think this is going to be a faithful remaster to the bone of the two iterations we've had before, nothing more. And like you said, that's great. That's fine. That's all you need. You really shouldn't be adding anything anyway when you're doing art restoration, right? Like, if you're charged with taking a work of art that has maybe degraded over the years and bringing it back up to the quality that the original artist intended, you don't want to be just doing your own thing and saying, no, we could add this, we can improve it like this. Because that's how you wind up with Monkey Christ. Do you remember Monkey Christ?
Wasn't it like they tried to restore a painting or something?
They tried to restore a fresco, I think, of Jesus.
Right.
And they accidentally turned Jesus into a monkey man, and it's called Monkey Christ.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, which, I mean, granted, Monkey Christ would be an excellent Donkey Kong Country Returns character.
This has been a File 2 production.
Spoka Akichina.